Today on Locked On Rockies, shelled at home, Marquez ice cold. How worried are we?
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 4th day of May in the year 2022. I'm your Rockies fan extraordinaire, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Rockies podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Proud to be your first listen. Hey, we're free and streaming on your favorite streaming service, and you can catch us recording every podcast live on our YouTube channel. All you got to do is subscribe to Locked On Rockies. Head over there, hit that subscribe button. It is a massive help for the show. Today on Locked On Rockies, we are going to be talking about Germán Márquez. That's really the big story of today, and a little bit of a preview of tonight's matchup, and a little shout out for a Rockies player from MLB.com. But before we dive into that, got to remind you that today's episode is brought to you by Blue Nile. This Mother's Day, give mom something she'll treasure forever with fine jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off $500. Use code Locked On at checkout. That's code Locked On at checkout. Yes, folks, Mother's Day this Sunday. Make sure that you are prepared. Whew. Speaking of ice cold like diamonds, Germán Márquez. Unfortunately, Germán Márquez struggles again yesterday, struggles mightily, and the biggest takeaway from his start yesterday is his inability to miss bats. In his last starts, Germán has been hit and hit hard. 8 hits against the Phillies on April 20th, 7 hits against the Phillies on April 26th, and 10 hits against the Nationals here, leading to 7 runs in back-to-back starts for Germán. And his location's not there. He's not striking people out. A lot of issues we're seeing with Germán. But let's dive in a little bit more here and see what Thomas Harding has to say. Marquez perplexed by performance. I've been working so hard. Righty determined to stick with strategy, work on fastball command. This is from Thomas Harding at MLB.com. Rockies right-hander Germán Márquez's next step has been backwards. His new twist, a tailspin. In 5 innings of Tuesday night's 10-2 loss to the Nationals at Coors Field, Marquez absorbed 7 runs and 10 hits, including home runs by Josh Bell and Juan Soto. In 4 starts since holding the Dodgers to 1 run and 3 hits in 7 innings in his season debut on April 9th, Marquez has lasted just 19 innings, given up 35 hits, and been saddled with a 9 ERA. I've been working so hard to fix the little things, Marquez said. Marquez is bewildered that he can't execute the fastball strategy that he thought would take him from being a 2021 All-Star to an even higher level. I'm going out there to give it my best to win the ball game. I don't want those games, Marquez said. My concentration and focus are still the same. Things are not working. Manager Bud Black sifted through theories. It's partly mechanics. It's partly probably some concentration. It's probably not being overly aggressive as he needs to be. Could his well-meaning 2022 strategy be a problem? During the weekend, as he prepared for the Tuesday start that went so poorly, Marquez expressed some surprise at the poor turn his fortune has taken. I have to be stronger, man. Like the first game this season, he said, and I had a good spring training, and I hadn't had a good one before. Coming off his first All-Star game trip last year, Marquez, 27, spent much of his offseason in Denver to train and tinker with his pitches in the problematic altitude. Marquez built his career working below the strike zone and glove side with a 2-seam sinking fastball and a slider outside to right-handed hitters. Throughout his career, he has fielded suggestions that he should become a threat in the other direction, tight to righties, so he brought it in. A 4-seamer could help me out with the 2-seam, Marquez said. When I'm going inside for righties, it's a lot of 2-seamers, but I want to throw fastballs, 4-seam, right on the belt. I feel like I can control it on both sides. Well, I'm working on it, but I'm missing my spot. Yeah, and that's really kind of a big summary of it there. Germán is just simply missing his spots. And if he can get that control, he's got the velocity. He's throwing pitches in the mid to high 90s. He has some pitches with some movement. It's just that he's not able to control and especially not able to locate that fastball. And that's just not going to be able to get the job done. And the Rockies simply need to be able to count on Germán. He's someone that the Rockies definitely count on and put at the forefront of this. But that's it's all comes down to fastballs. I feel like with pitching, of course, there's movement pitchers, there's pitchers that have a better, that aren't really fastball pitchers, that are better with throwing something like a slider or something with a little bit of a break. However, you have to be able to have control of your fastball. You have to be able to work ahead in the counts, and you have to be able to use your fastball effectively as a weapon, as a threat, and especially be able to mix it up with something like a two-seam fastball so you can start throwing fastballs with movements that aren't just straight sliders, that aren't just straight, your pitches that you expect with more movement. That's one thing I think we're not seeing, at least that I haven't seen a lot, is Marquez's fastballs breaking the way he wants them to. Looks like maybe when he does get them to break, they're breaking outside for balls instead of breaking into tight spots, into the zone, tight spots onto the corner. Now, there's an interesting kind of, I don't know if conspiracy theory that goes on with Germán Márquez. It's just it's something that's really interesting. And my guy Jambron has the down low on that for us. And so here it is. Marquez always starts slow. His numbers so far are big outliers over his career norms. Whip, career 1.3, 2022, 1.7. Hits per 9, career 9, 2022, 13. Home runs per 9, career 1.2, 2022 so far, 2.1. Strikeouts per 9, career 9, 2022, 6 per 9. Strikeouts per 9. Home runs, especially hits, lack of Ks are all way up. He'll regress back to his career numbers. It's that's the thing. He needs to not only he needs to eliminate the long ball, especially. That's been something that's been doing so much damage against Marquez this season. And it's something we talked about yesterday ahead of the game. Who are the two people you need to limit their offensive production? Juan Soto and Josh Bell. What happens? Juan Soto and Josh Bell also just go on to hit massive nukes. There's time. And the weird thing about that, and it's interesting about the time for Marquez, because as it's gotten warmer, Marquez gets better. Jambron goes on to say, dude just can't pitch until it's 90 degrees. It's almost funny. This slow start happens every year. And it might sound crazy to say that, but it's been about a year since I have started the podcast and started hosting. So thank you, by the way, everyone. It's been about a year of Locked On Rockies. You all have been wonderful. But he told me the same thing last year. He told me the same thing. He said, Marquez, in the beginning of the season, especially when the weather and the temperatures are cooler, he struggles. And then after he told me that, Marquez went on to be an all-star, went on to dominate, and to go on to the stretch where he dominated at the end. So now it is, and again, I want to keep going back to stuff that that Jambron says too here in just a moment, where it's kind of the overall perception of Marquez and maybe the league perspective of Marquez, or the stat-driven perspective of Marquez versus how the Rockies perceive him. But I want to shout out Eric Harper for joining us in the live chat here with a Go Rockies. Go Rockies indeed. The Rockies still very much in a position to win a series at home. Last night was a stinker, but hey, the Rockies are still playing at Coors Field and plenty of time to bounce out. If you want to be like Eric and hop in the live chat, you can drop your questions and more by subscribing to Locked On Rockies on the YouTube channel. Massive help to us here at the station. This station, my little the Locked On Rockies station. It's a huge help to us here. But you know who else also helps us is our wonderful sponsors like Blue Nile. Mother's Day is this Sunday, folks, and you don't want to miss out. Whether she prefers a statement piece or everyday subtle elegance, BlueNile.com has fine jewelry options for every mom. Shop high-quality classic diamond earrings, elegant tennis bracelets, or gemstones, pendants, and necklaces. And if you don't, if you're kind of a little overwhelmed by the jewelry process, maybe you want to celebrate the new mom in your life. Maybe your partner, your wife just gave birth, and you want to celebrate that with something nice, a nice piece of jewelry, but you don't know where to start. Well, the fine folks at Blue Nile have jewelry experts on hand 24/7. They are available via the phone or the online chat services. They can help you find a memorable gift at every budget. Mark Mother's Day with something enduring. Classic diamond stud earrings, elegant tennis bracelets, birthstone pendants, and so much more. on BlueNile.com. This Mother's Day, give mom something she'll treasure forever with fine jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Rockies listeners get $50 off $500. This podcast exclusive is only good through Mother's Day, so don't miss out on that $50 off of $500 purchase with the promo code Locked On. That's code Locked On. Woo! Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever peace. Go to BlueNile.com today, and don't forget to use the promo code Locked On. Eric Harper asks, as a new fan, I'm curious, can I look forward to Connor and CJ being on the team long term, in your opinion? Yes, you can, actually. Connor Joe's the interesting one. I'm actually not familiar with his contract situation. I believe he's bounced around a lot of leagues. I think the Rockies are definitely going to give him a good long look, and probably with the way the Rockies have acted, an extension isn't too crazy. Let me actually see. He might have already signed a contract, but I could be wrong here. Connor Joe. I'm looking that up. But on the flip side, CJ Cron just signed an extension for, I believe it was two or 3 years this just this offseason, heading into this season. So CJ Cron's going to be here for a handful more years and making impacts and swinging the bat very well. I'm glad to have you as a new Rockies fan. Looks like Connor Joe still has his arbitration. He's still in pre-arbitration. So looks like he will still have to figure out the Rockies will still have to figure out something with Connor Joe. But if he continues to produce the way he is and the way the Rockies have been loyal to people that they believe is their core, Senza, Cron, Marquez, Freeland, McMahon, all getting extensions. If Connor Joe continues to produce, I wouldn't be surprised if the Rockies will figure out their contract negotiations there. But you can look forward to, for sure, a lot of CJ Cron and Connor Joe this season. Absolutely. So we want to talk. I wanted to talk a little bit more about Germán Márquez, and I wanted to bring up my buddy again, Jambron here, and who's again this is a fan. This is someone that knows the Rockies, that has watched the Rockies since their inception, still continues. It can never completely stay away from the Rockies. But he says, to me, Marquez just isn't a true ace because of this type of behavior. There are times he shows the potential to be an ace and a top 20 pitcher in the league, yet there are also times where he isn't dominant or consistent. Marquez is a 2 or a 3. And I don't think it's kind of crazy to say or assume that on certain staffs and in certain teams and in certain clubs, I think Marquez would be a 2 or a 3. I think that there are pitchers that have been able to show a more consistent season, an entire 162 game stretch of consistent pitching more than Germán Márquez. But I think I think it takes away from the fact that Marquez is someone that is a successful pitcher at Coors Field. That is a key piece to why the pitchers have all this want to be here, want to pitch here, and why there's a mentality of being successful here, especially of late. And he is someone that really can dominate games. We've all seen Marquez at the top of his game, and when he's at the top, I do consider him a top pitcher in baseball. When he's missing bats, when he's striking out, he moves and accelerates the pace of the game and keeps the opposing team off their feet and so off balance with his ability to just hit him with some velocity, with some movement and some gas, and then throw something that might have a little bit that they weren't expecting. Marquez can dominate games. We've seen him do it. And hopefully, if the slow start and this regresses, the Rockies can bounce back. But the Rockies have been in too many situations from their pitching down 10 runs, 8 runs, 7 runs, 6 runs, 5 runs. I mean, the starters got to be better, have to be more sharp, especially at home. And it's got to come with limiting the long ball. I'm hoping when we'll know Marquez is getting back to what we know Germán Márquez can be, our ace. Maybe not in the perception of the whole league, maybe not in the perception of everyone else or some certain teams, but the Rockies ace is when he's missing barrels and when he's eliminating how often people are hitting home runs off of him. So we'll see. We'll see as the weather warms up. We'll see as the season goes on. But those games like that are tough because those are the ones those are the ones. It's a home game with one of your best pitchers, your top pitcher in your eyes, and what you consider. You want to go out and make a statement to open up the series. But a lot of baseball games and a lot of more starts for Marquez on the way. But man, we're hoping the weather warms up and he warms up a little bit and he can start really locating those pitches and get back to doing what he does, because he clearly sounds frustrated as he's talking to reporters and talking to people, is a little confused. And sometimes baseball and everything too, when it's that mental block, when you have those issues that are frustrating you, that might cause a pain and get in the way of how you handle your approach on the mound and getting after it in terms of your starts. But plenty of season left, plenty of times for Marquez to come up and have an impact for this Rockies team. Eric Harper in the chat says, how do you think our pitching rotation power rankings shake out? I don't think the Rockies have necessarily the most dominant starting pitching staff. I think they have a fine pitching staff. But if I was to compare it to the rotations of just the NL West, I would say the Rockies have the fourth best rotation there. I don't think you're going to get I think you're going to get some good performances. And as long as the Rockies starters can limit their damage and be good and fine on the road, while also being good Coors Field pitchers, they'll have some good numbers. But I don't think you're going to see the Rockies lead necessarily any categories other than getting people to ground in a double plays, because they're really, really good at that. The Rockies are really good at getting ground ball outs, the Rockies pitching staff and some of their pitchers, but I don't think the Rockies staff is necessarily a dominant force. I think they're good pitchers. I think the Rockies have good starters. I like the rotation. I don't necessarily think the Rockies rotation is quote unquote bad. I just think even if you just compare it to the rest of the NL West, the Rockies would probably rank like fourth there. And I would just kind of say middle of the pack type of rotation, but could be more on the upside of the middle of the major leagues when it comes to power rankings in Rockies pitchers, because we do have we do know the Rockies pitchers can throw out some dominant performances as well. And let's see, we got Adrian here in the live chat. Marquez was weird yesterday. Struck Soto, then Bell hits a homer, then strikes out Cruz, then Soto hits homer, then strikes out Bell. Yeah, pretty classic, just an inconsistent Germán Márquez start. And it just it just all started too. He just couldn't get the rhythm where he couldn't kind of string those that domination together and keep things consistent, because it was kind of like, man, squared up, strikeout. Then there's line out on a loud out or something like that, because there was a couple of pitches that I was seeing, like it was like, whew, they just missed those fastballs, because there was a lot of pitches left in the middle of the zone. But hopefully, as the weather gets warmer and the Marquez continues to work on that fastball, we're going to see more from him. I do a lot of the sound, right? We talk a lot about sound and the alarms. So we talk a lot about our worry alerts as we're going through the season. And Marquez, yes, I'm keeping an eye out, but this is something we know. This is something we've seen. If you have followed the Rockies, and especially followed Germán Márquez's time in Colorado, a slow start is nothing new to you. Want to go ahead and take a moment to talk about a Rocky getting a shout out as a top fascinating player in the game of baseball. But before we do that, got to tell you about our friends at Built Bar. Built Bar is the bar for you. You can be prepared for summer. You're going to be out there. You're going to be biking. You're going to be hiking. You're going to be walking all over the place. You're going to be taking the kids to practice. You're going to be doing this. You're going to be doing all sorts of stuff. So why not have a great snack for you, for your family vacation, or whatever you're doing for your summer adventure? Best part about Built Bars, they're healthy and delicious. No more sacrificing delicious foods for health. With Built Bar, you can have both. And it's easy. All you have to do is go to Built.com and order now. And when you go to Built.com, you can see the macro charts for yourself, and you can see all the delicious flavors. My favorite, if it's got brownie in it, that's the one I want. There's also even the churro Built Bar Puffs. Yes, churro Built Bar Puffs that contain less than, most of them contain less, 4 grams of sugar, 130 calories, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. And you can see all the delicious flavors, all the good stuff waiting for you at Built.com. And when you head to Built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15, you're going to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. That's 15% off your delicious Built Bars at built.com when you use the promo code LOCK15. Adrian Ortega asks, what is your opinion on trading Iglesias at the deadline? Expecting Tovar reaches AAA by then, Trejo can hold it down in the meantime. Whew. Interesting. I didn't really think of that because I kind of imagined the Rockies were going to take the full season and let Iglesias try to figure out and rely on a veteran defensive presence there at shortstop. He's made some good plays. He's also made some meh plays, but he's also contributed on offense. I think an Iglesias trade at the deadline isn't a crazy thing to think of. However, our team's going to look at Iglesias, and maybe if he continues to show improvements on the offensive side, are they going to do that as a Coors Field product and look at the fact that he's played fine defense. He's made a couple of great plays. He also missed that catch on that play last night where he could have tagged out. I can't remember who it was there on someone extending a play into a double. But that's interesting. I mean, if Tovar does go up, if Trejo contributes, if Rogers play, the big question, I guess, there, Adrian, would be where is Brendan Rodgers at this equation? Are we getting the Brendan Rodgers we know? Are we getting a Brendan Rodgers with a solid approach at the dish and at the plate to complement the fact that he plays a strong defense? That could be the thing that you entertain, but would be really interesting for the Rockies to flip Iglesias. I don't necessarily think that that's their plan, but it might be interesting if you could flip Iglesias for someone that could just not someone that's going to dominate maybe, but just someone to bolster your bullpen, get you a nice reliever, get you someone to come out of the bullpen to probably give you a little more depth there. And that is the one question too with the Iglesias and a possible Iglesias trade is the current depth of the Rockies at that point and where the Rockies are at in the year, because it is just right. Iglesias was a 1-year deal, I'm pretty sure. So it is. Rockies aren't competing. Team wants to, go after it for Trejo. Why not? They are not Trejo. Iglesias, you can get something out of it. Sure, you're not gonna be against that. There's something there, and you make a good point there. A Daza connection. I think the Rockies will be more hesitant to trade their outfielders. They really liked the cycle of the outfielders getting their in, but Daza is the one who's getting the least amount of playing time, and he could be an interesting factor for a team as well. Yeah, that is true. It's solid, too solid, a good defending center fielder who maybe is not going to be your biggest offensive contributor with Iglesias being a solid vet potentially on an upswing season. Could be interesting there as well. That's an interesting thought there, Adrian. And got to head over to MLB.com. And these are the 7 most fascinating players right now. Will Leach, they're right about this. And who it's on the list? It's our boy Randall. Grichuk is is on the list here. Every time Randy Arozarena did something season run, Cardinals fans wins because they'd famously traded Arozarena the way that offseason along with Jose Martinez for left-hander Matthew Liberatore. It was part of the stretch where the Cardinals were criticized for letting all sorts of thriving outfielders go. The Cardinals. What? Okay. This is a lot about the Cardinals here before they start talking about it, but here we go. The Cardinals have figured out their outfield, though Tyler O'Neill and Dylan Carson are off to slow starts this year, but it turns out the one who got away may have been none of those guys. It's Grichuk, whom the Rockies traded Raimel Tapia for right before the season began, who is mashing right now. For all the Chris Bryant hype and Connor Joe human interest stories, Randall is crushing the ball with the most, putting up a 338, 389, 523 slash line while playing a perfectly respectable center field. Run fact, Grichuk only has 8 fewer career homers than Bryant, despite being essentially the same age. It's something it's something you really have to celebrate. That was a great trade. The Tapia trade has panned out well, especially the Rockies getting a player that's made huge impacts on the team so far this year, and money back for Tapia, who can go get a better opportunity and he's getting playing time over there and is getting an opportunity to make an impact on a different club in a different area. I think this is a move that we do need to celebrate. And Randall has just been someone who's just been so awesome in both assets, especially when we weren't too sure about how he was going to be as a defender, and he's come up massive. So the MLB taking a little notice of a fun Rocky as well. So I wanted to bring that up. Eric Harper asked, during a typical season, are the Rockies an active trade team or more reluctant? They are more reluctant, my friend. They don't usually make big moves. They've made some in the past. I believe Troy Tulowitzki was traded at the deadline. He was an in-season deal. Most Rockies trades that I can usually think of are off-season deals. The Nolan Arenado deal happened there. The Rockies famously did not trade John Gray or Trevor Story at the deadline last year, believing that they could get a deal done with John Gray. They didn't, and believing that Trevor Story might want to come back to the Rockies. He did not. The Rockies are not, but the Rockies will make a send a Michael Gibbons to the Reds type of trade. However, that could change. We will. Bill Schmidt wasn't technically in charge as the interim as the interim GM last year. There was more of a committee last year with John Gray and Trevor Story at the deadline. There's some stuff there that you just sort of like, huh? But again, you learned that it wasn't just Schmidt dominating that conversation. So how Bill Schmidt handles his first trade deadline as the Rockies, full-time GM, we'll have to see. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rockies are active, though. I mean, the Tapia trade, the money spent in the offseason, they are doing things that they haven't done a lot in off seasons past. So Adrian in the live chat says, it may be off topic, but how do you see Story's massive slump right now? Personally, I think it's just him not being comfortable. Might take time, but he'll get there. He absolutely will get there. Trevor Story is a phenomenal baseball player, and Trevor Story not hitting home runs or anything yet is just it's a new place, it's a new thing, and he's in a hard environment. I mean, it's in terms of the perspective of him, but it's Fenway. Once Trevor Story starts connecting with pitches, once Trevor Story gets his swing in the groove, Trevor Story will be launching the ball all over Fenway, all over Yankee Stadium, all over those AL East ballparks. Trevor Story plays a good defense. He started the season sick. He went through the lockout. He was doing all this stuff. He's playing a new position. Trevor Story's had to do a lot of change, a lot of upheaval, a lot of stuff that gets in the way of the routine of baseball, and you're seeing that. And that stuff matters. I talk about that stuff, that little stuff, especially in the game of baseball, how superstitious, how routine driven, how fundamental some stuff is for players. And you mess that up, you throw the whole thing off, especially if your headspace is a little off, it's going to impact your entire game. And especially, when it's at the amplified when you're in a place like Boston. But Boston in general is struggling. Boston in general is underperforming. It shouldn't just be, just on the back of Trevor Story. So, but so I think Trevor Story is going to be fine, and I'm hoping that Germán Márquez is going to be fine as well. Eric, I'm going to tell you, this will be our last question here. Eric asks, how does the general fan base feel towards players such as Kris Bryant and Nolan Arenado? Kris Bryant, it's a new, it's the new thing. People are obviously excited. When no one's not going to be not thrilled when it comes to Kris Bryant. I think there's a lot of Rockies fans that have the Kris Bryant, Nolan Arenado argument fresh in their head back with Bryant being on the Cubs and when Nolan was here. But you might find some players that are or fans of that are disappointed by the way things went down with Nolan and how Nolan kind of seemed like he might have wanted out in Colorado. But I think if you ask I shouldn't say real, I will say most Rockies fans are incredibly disappointed by the trade of Nolan Arenado and are incredibly disappointed by the way the front office has handled a lot of star players over the past definitely 5 years when it comes to DJ LeMahieu, Trevor Story, John Gray, and star player with John Gray kind of doing a little stretching there, but in terms of fan favorites, and then of course Nolan Arenado. Nolan Arenado is this very special baseball player. He's one of the most special baseball players we've ever seen, and I hope Kris Bryant is able to perform and play at the level that he has in the past to demonstrate that it's just a matter of time for Kris Bryant, because Rockies fans love Nolan Arenado. They might be upset, but I think Rockies fans that get it, and maybe I'm being a little harsh here, I don't know, understand that the Nolan trade is a bigger disappointment from a front office side than the player Nolan side and things of that nature. I don't necessarily know if that was the best way to phrase it, but feel the way you feel. It's your fandom. It's the way you do it. I can understand totally how how it can be perceived the way it is. But at the end of the day, we love Rockies players. We love Rockies fans. I'm still a big Nolan guy. I love, if you played for the Rockies, good chances I'm a fan of yours. Maybe a couple of exceptions, Jose Reyes. But anyway, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. Thank you, Nick, for coming in and jumping in the chat, even though you are late. Thank you, Eric, for coming into Rockies fandom and joining the show. Adrian, great topics as always. Adrian's always putting in great comments into the live chat. If you want to be in the live chat and part of the show, subscribe to Locked On Rockies on the YouTube channel and make sure that you are up to date with all things Locked On Rockies. You can follow us on Twitter at LO Rockies. And now that you've made Locked On Rockies your first listen of the day, go make Locked On Now and Locked On MLB your second listens of the day. Stay up to date with all things Major League Baseball and the world of sports with those wonderful podcasts. And if you want to stay up to date with your dominating Avalanche in that huge first game, you can follow along with Locked On Avalanche. There's also Locked On Broncos, keeping you up to date with all things Russell Wilson and the Broncos. And what's next for the Nuggets? Well, Locked On Nuggets has you covered there. I'm Paul Holden. I'm the host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, and we will talk to you tomorrow, and we'll see you on Twitter tonight for the game. Until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On